Good afternoon to our lovely Mihas audience. Welcome to the Industry Zone Session 10. For today's speaking slot, we will be having Dr. Hacharad Singh on board to talk on initiatives by Malaysian Bioeconomy Development Corporation on Bioeconomy Ecosystem. Dr. Hacharan is the Senior Vice President for Industry Development Division in the Malaysian Bioeconomy Development Corporation, or for short, Bioeconomy Corporation. Today, Dr. Hacharan will speak on the key initiatives undertaken by the Bioeconomy Corporation that support the bioeconomy ecosystem and the bio-based industry, highlighting Bioeconomy Corporation's achievements and initiatives undertaken on industry facilitation, training, and funding. He will also introduce the Biobased Accelerator program and how it can assist new or existing bio-based companies. Without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Hacharan. Dr. Hacharan, please.
Noor, thank you so much for your kind introduction. Distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon. I'm privileged to have an audience like you who are very dedicated to listen to this very targeted talk on the bioeconomy ecosystem. Since the inception of bioeconomy, with the start of the National Biotech Policy in 2005, which is 15 years ago, the Malaysian biotech industry has evolved and grown. We have laid down the building blocks to attract the right players into the ecosystem. And in doing so, we had to establish various initiatives, programs, and developmental activities. I'll highlight to you today some of the notable initiatives we have undertaken over the last 15 years, and some, due to time constraints, I'll not have time to elaborate on all the activities though. Next, please. The outline of my presentation basically includes the 4 key topics here. Firstly, the organization overview and also the BioNexus status is a special status we give to companies under our nurturing. We also talk about the biotech ecosystem facilitation. I'll spend a fair bit of time on this. And then the biotechnology industry focus areas, there are 3 big focus areas that we tend to focus on. And finally, the biotech emerging areas and some challenges faced by the industry. Next. If you look at the challenges that we're facing today globally, right, there's some key driving forces that we have to consider to make a necessary and essential change. If you look at sustainability, food, which is to do with basically can we reuse materials, from the start to finish, like circular economy is one of the clear-cut examples. We look at food security as well. Do we have enough food to feed us and the world? If you look at it, the population today is about 7.8 billion people. By 2050, the population will increase to about 10 billion people, a 28% increase in population. But sadly, the global land mass and arable land is still static, it's stagnant, it's not growing. We're also looking at carbon footprint now. Of course, carbon footprint is to create a better sustainable environment now, green environment using green products, etc. And this footprint is very important today with the big change in climatic conditions globally. We also look at energy security now. For far too long, we've been relying on fossil fuel. This is now not the way forward. We're looking at alternative ways to generate fuel, generate energy. One way, of course, is using biotech means, but of course, there are also other means such as thermal energy, solar, and so on. And finally, also, more so with the start of COVID-19, right? We are having issues with health and wellness. And this is an area I think we'll continuously tend to focus on. Everyone wants to live a healthy lifestyle, or want to live longer as well, be disease-free, or even if you're diseased now, to have a treatment basically in place, which is sustainable, right? And using your own cells and biological means where possible, instead of using a chemical compound or a third-party entity. Now, in order to drive some, if not all of these changes, right, I think biotechnology is key and essential over here, and we cannot neglect this whole big area. And biotechnology is defined in many different ways now. I think the approach Bioeconomy Corporation has taken is to have a generalized approach, because the industry is very nascent, still growing in Malaysia. So you look at biotech, how we define it generally is the use of living processes, organisms, or system to manufacture products or technology intended to improve the quality of human life, basically. So what we are looking at is using any living organisms now, such as microorganisms now, using your own stem cells, for example, to regenerate your body mechanism, to use tissue culture techniques for propagation of plants, for example. And these are sustainable methods, or biotech-based methods, rather, to do an activity instead of the conventional method now. And I'll be giving some specific examples as we go on. Next, please. Now, let me first introduce a bit on the organization structure and some of the functions and the roles that we play. We stated earlier, we started in 2005, about 15 years ago, and we are guided by this National Biotechnology Policy, which was approved by the cabinet back then. In terms of reporting structure, we report to the Ministry of Finance. They wholly basically fund us for whatever activity that we do. But where reporting is concerned, we report to the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Industries, or MAFI. This reporting structure was in place since 2019. Before that, we were reporting to MOSTI. It's very simple structure here, functional structure. And when the National Biotech Policy was devised, we had to play various roles basically to develop the infrastructure for a robust biotech ecosystem. And some of the activities that we were told to undertake are the ecosystem development and support, which I'll talk about more in detail. We also have to bring in the foreign direct investments and domestic direct investments, very targeted towards the biotech industry itself now, and we have successfully done it over the years. Nurture companies to grow and sustain its operations, meaning the minute we have a company under our fold, we tend to not neglect it. We tend to revisit them every now and then. And we have site visits, for example. We also have the annual reporting structure, see how well these companies are doing and what they're investing in. We also have various types of facilitation, one of which I think a key facilitation, funding facilitation. I'll talk about more on this a bit later as well. We have capacity building and trading now. Very often we have companies, especially the foreign companies coming to Malaysia, indicating to us that they want trained personnel in the area of biotech. We may be lacking in this, so we play a role to support this area as well. And we look at industrial linkages to research institutions and universities. Although our companies per se are not directly involved in doing research, they are the startup and beyond companies which have research activities. But many companies come to us and say that, look, they want to collaborate with a university, do a certain area of research or do a certain product development, for example. So we have a pool of researchers that we know of who are expert in their own fields, and we communicate with them very closely and link them up to the industry. And finally, of course, we also have inter-ministry engagement. As you know, biotechnology cut across various ministries such as Ministry of Health now, MOSTI. We also talk about the Commodities Ministry as well, and so on. Yep. So we do talk to different ministries. Of course, not forgetting MIDA, yeah, very important partner of ours as well. Next, please. So in doing so, right, one of the privileges that we were given by the government back then was to basically give the status called a BioNexus status to company. This is a special status given to qualified Malaysian and international companies undertaking value-added biotech downstream activities. So for example, now if you want to, say, plant pineapple, and you're using tissue culture methods to plant pineapple, and we see tissue culture as being a biotech element, we will then entertain you and see how we can accord you with this status. However, if you are planting pineapple, and you may argue it is a renewable activity, we do agree, and it is using conventional methods now, where you just cut the crown and just plant it from the roots, we see no biotech activity in that. So obviously we cannot grant you a BioNexus status, but we'll compel you and tell you how you can transform yourself to be a biotech company or have a biotech activity in what you're doing. Maybe apart from perhaps using tissue culture, you can also use molecular tools now to identify the markers that you want, for example, in the plant. That will also qualify you as a biotech company. If you don't qualify a BioNexus status, what we tend to do is we tell you where you can actually go to for other types of incentives that you can leverage on. Yeah. So one of the compelling reasons why they want the BioNexus status is the fact that they get these tax incentives. There's privileges over there. They get one of the key privileges that you will accord you up to 10 years of tax incentive, where you do not pay 70% of tax for 10 years, which is quite good. It used to be 100%, but it's now changed to 70%. So other than that, we also, right, handhold you to take you to financial institutions should you require funding. And funding normally is a key point many companies, startup companies especially, would want. So we ourselves may not be able to fund you, but we take you to as the banks, maybe to other government agencies that have such fundings, such as MTDC, MDV, for example, Taraju, even Mostia fundings and so on. We tell you these are the fundings. We tell them the companies you can apply for to undertake your activity, for example. Yeah. And we also have human capital, of course, I mentioned earlier now. We have a couple of programs I'll discuss later on how we train human capital. We have a certain amount of funding from the government, and the government has indicated to us that please have this training for fresh graduates and also people already in the industry today. And we also give them a targeted training at our cost for a month now, and then place them into industries. We also have technology and innovation as well. Over the years, we have procured 4 platform technologies, 2 of which we have seen wean off and given them to the custodians. The other 2 actively still with us are the supercritical platform technology and the market-assisted platform technology. I'll talk a bit more on that later in my later slides. So we do technology facilitation. If a company come to us and say, look, they want to acquire a certain technology, and then although we don't have fund for that, but we link them up to other institutions that can fund them for technology acquisition. And of course, legal and regulatory advisory services, we play very often. Companies not sure how to set up the company, for example, or in legal wrangle, maybe with advisory services only. We do not draft the agreement for them. We don't know what to do, how to navigate, some tricky issues that often crop up in legal agreements. Next slide, please. Now, and as I mentioned earlier, we accord this very important status called the BioNexus Status. If you look at it, we have to date up to 254 BioNexus companies or BioNexus status given up to companies in the different sectors. There are 3 core sectors that we in fact promote. One is the agriculture biotech, as you can see in green over there. There are about 142 companies, or 56% of the 254 companies are in this sector. And then the next sector is the healthcare bio. We have 71 companies in the sector, or comprising of 28%. And then we got bioindustrial is 16%. If you look at the ag biotech space, this is mainly dominated by local companies. Agriculture biotech is mainly a local game. So many startup companies, smaller companies coming in, they're doing seeds now, tissue culture, using microorganisms to enhance the soil. We're looking at biofertilizers and so on. So the whole range of companies doing various small activities. There are 1 or 2 foreign companies in this space, really. When you go to healthcare, right, we have got a good mix of local and foreign companies over here. The foreign companies mainly are involved in contract research manufacturing and organizations. They do contract research over here in Malaysia. And some are also involved in stem cells. They link up with other companies internationally to do research, for example, or they have the holding companies, the overseas company very often. So the healthcare, and also we've got many companies with medical devices as well. So this is a big space, right? And it's a very prominent space today. Just to highlight also, we've got 2 companies under our portfolio that we engage with very closely, Raison and also Medivan, who have their own RTK COVID-19 antigen test kits available today. Yeah, they're producing it now and selling in the pharmacies. And then bioindustrial space basically is dominated, again, mix of local and foreign companies. But the foreign companies in this area are normally big. The investment is huge. The local companies, the size of investment is much smaller. Yeah. So to wrap up, basically, right, the size of companies, from the 254 companies that we have, there are about 82% of companies are considered as SME or small companies, just startups in 2-3 years maturity. At that stage, basically, they're not generating large amounts of money just yet. They're trying to grow, and feel their way into the value chain still. Then we got the small, medium companies, about 14%, a small number again. The sales up to 3 million to 20 million, considered in that classification. And the mature companies, and many, I think, 6 or 7 companies are listed in the local and foreign bourses, for example, which generate sales more than 20 million. We've got about 3% of them in that category. So as you can see, generally, the biotech sector in Malaysia is still growing. We are not able to take on the likes of the big boys like Pfizer and GSK and all that, but we are slowly growing. So we have most of our companies are still SME, small companies. Yes, so they need a lot of hand holding, a lot of financial support and training support, which we are playing, and we got the right ecosystem. I'll talk shortly again. Next, please. So now let me start with the first program that we're doing in terms of ecosystem development, right? So whenever companies come to us in the past to apply for BioNexus status, we go through the application form, and many are very often rejected because they do not either have a biotech element, or they're simply doing trading now, or some just not sure what to do, or some are having financial problems. They have issues, and many of these companies shy away and do not apply BioNexus, or they continue doing what they're doing conventionally. So we thought that, look, it'd be good for us to have a bridging program. So before you can apply for Binax status, you go on to this program called the Biobased Accelerator program. It's a dedicated program. As you can see the first bullet over there. It's a guidance program for bio-based companies. I stress the point here, bio-based companies in the agriculture, industrial, and healthcare sectors that serve as a stepping stone to obtain the BioNexus status. So what we do basically in this program is that we guide them and nurture them. Let's say, for example, let me give you a simple case here. Let's say a company is again doing pineapple, as mentioned earlier, and they're planting pineapple conventionally using a root now. We tell them, hey, now you can now increase the value addition, increase some level of technology in what you're doing now, know-how. Maybe you can try to use tissue culture, okay, which they must do themselves. Just buying tissue culture from a third party and planting it again, we don't consider them as having the know-how, the biotech know-how. They have to do it themselves. Or perhaps alternatively, we tell the company, look, why do you not use the fertilizer you're using on a pineapple now? Basically, it's conventional fertilizer, chemical-based fertilizer. Why do you not make your own bio-based fertilizer? All right. So what we do is that we don't even tell them what to do. We show them, say, all right, if you're interested in this, let us organize a training session with the experts. We are no experts ourselves. How to make biofertilizer, I may know simple steps, but I'm not the main person doing it. Or none of us are in the organization. We engage with people down there on the ground who's doing this activity already, or even with professors at the universities who have such experience. Yeah. So what we do in this program is that we give them dedicated training to make the end product. So let's say at the end of the day, right, the company come up to us and say, look, great, I've learned so much here. I know how to make a bio-based fertilizer. I do not want your BioNexus status. We are perfectly fine with it. In fact, we'll tell them then where else they can go to get the other incentives. For example, MIDA has a pioneer status, or the corridors have their own status. We are okay with it. The whole idea, objective of this program is to guide these companies, to tell them to increase, go up the value chain than just to remain stuck at a certain area. So we assist companies, the third bullet there, assist companies to progressively move up the value chain. And finally, we identify gaps, right, in skills, technology, financial, and so on. So after nurturing the company for about 6 months, it's a new program now, but within 6 months, we'll probably do a check and balance and see what are the gaps the company have and what can we offer the companies. So the companies coming into this system, right, what they also enjoy some privileges. Of course, they don't enjoy any tax incentives over here. I think that's not their main game, end game here. Their end game is to get the know-how, the knowledge. So the privileges I can see over there is receive structured knowledge transfer training, pitching and product readiness sessions with experts. So at no cost to them. And we also access to participate in selected training or development programs, because so many programs. You can see in the next slide, I show you the detailed programs we have. They can participate in this at no cost to them. Also, fast track application for the BioNexus status, which comes with a 10-year tax incentive. Yep. So fast track means that we will not automatically approve them. They still have to go through the normal channels. They have to go and prepare a business plan, but we would have known the strengths of the companies, the weaknesses. It'd be a lot easier for us now to shorten the whole process of the BioNex application. Typically, may say it may take 3 to 5 months. It can be shortened to maybe 2 months or less, yeah, because we know the company well. So what are some of the training programs that they can benefit from? It's on the next slide. Next, please. If you look over here, right, the BBA training programs, we have a whole list of different type of programs. We have 6 big categories over here. The first category is the generic training now, things like taxes and advisory services, MIDA, import duty exemption, and so on, regulatory and so on. The generic training is given to them, or they can go on to funding access. This funding access is trainings Where can they get funded from third-party agencies now, not necessarily from us, mostly MTDC and so on, or Bioeconomy, I'll talk about it later again, and funding access, okay? We also give training on this funding, the funding access training may not necessarily be given by us. We bring in the right expert to give them. For example, Mosty is one to say they got these 3 different types of funds. We'll get a Mosty personnel come in and basically brief them on the different types of funding structures they have. Product technology testing and facilitation. We have product. The point number 4 is product and facility certification programs. So some companies are ready to be Halal certified. For example, now we go handheld them to say how to do the certification process. Again, the experts come in there, give them training, and this expert basically is a third-party company we tend to collaborate with, who knows how to fast track, or maybe not maybe fast track, but perhaps to get the Halal certification or message certification or whatever it is. Then targeted training now, these are training that the certain group of companies want, says just they want to know something more on tissue culture, no problem with us. We tend to get expert in and tell how tissue culture is done. It'll be a hands-on training, targeted training. And finally, of course, we have facilitation with other ministries, agencies as well. We're currently working on a program with Malaysian Productivity Corporation, for example. Next slide, please. So that was the first type of in the ecosystem, the type of program that we have. The other very important initiative we run is that we also got funding from the government to run this funding initiative. These are fundings that the organization is able to give companies. Initially, we started only giving this to BioNexus companies, but now it's open to all bio-based companies, right? Do not have to be BioNexus companies. The first one we started, the AGVF, is called the Agro-Based Venture Fund. This is very new, just launched a few months ago. We have basically 70 million funding for next 5 years for this, whereby we can invest in a company and take an equity in the company with preferential shares, of course. So that and we, of course, we will know the industry well. Chances of us understanding industry is so much better compared to a normal bank understanding the bio-based industry. And of course, we will take a preferential shares. We will not take majority shareholding, maybe up to 30%, perhaps that's a maximum. And we will want to see an exit plan as well. We discuss it with the company. So this is a fund. It's not a grant. So of course, we invest in the company. And we also, of course, want to see the company making returns. But our value add will then be basically to tell them what to do, how to do. Can you leverage different types of training? Of course, if I have an interest in this company, I may want to perhaps look at this company a bit differently. Yep. So that is open. And I think for now, we are proposing up to 5 million, right, equity we are able to take into a particular company is being proposed for now. And this is a 5-year funding scheme that we have. The Minister of Finance has agreed on this. And the other one is the BCF, the Bioeconomy Commercialization Fund. This has started a long time ago, I think probably coming up to 8, 9, or maybe 10 years now. There are 2 types of fund. One is Bioeconomy Development Scheme, this funny developmental basic projects, or the other business sustenance scheme for companies already operating and running and they want to expand, for example. The first one, the first bullet there was for startup companies really, and one is beyond startup. And they can spend this money on both OPEX and CAPEX now. Typical fund size is about 3 million now. And we are now reworking this BCF fund now to see how to best manage this. As I said earlier, this was only at one point in time open up to BioNexus companies, but now we have opened up this. We are trying to open this up to all companies, bio-based companies. And we are also trying to work out a mechanism, right, whereby we will either take equity or maybe it's give as a low interest loan perhaps to the company and so on. Okay, still much favorable compared to getting a loan from the financial institutions. For this one, we have about 57.5 million remaining, to spend. So companies can leverage on this as well. These are funding schemes that we have. We used to have another funding scheme called the Seed Fund, which has since expired now. As you can see, we ask for the government for money to fund companies, right? And we then select the appropriate companies and fund them accordingly. Next. The next program we have also is very important. It's called the Bioeconomy Capacity Building. There are 2 types of programs over here. The first one is the BEST 2.0, which is the Bioagrotech, Biopharmaceutical and Probability and Entrepreneurship Specialized Training. Long word. This program, the BEST 2.0, basically is to train fresh graduates or graduates up to 3 years of training, up to 3 years. So they are, for example, they are already with an organization. and the organization feels that for them to promote or they need to reskill themselves, they come to us and no worries, we'll train you for 1 whole month now, give them specialized training. And this training, of course, will work together with the companies and see what is that they want to train so they can be reskilled, these people. So they must already be employed, or even fresh graduates can be a fresh graduate as long as they get employment with the company now, no problem. So we will take them to the next level. So they are skilled, the right skill sets. I think the complaint we receive very often is that companies tell us that they are fresh graduates now, they cannot value add to us, they do not know how things work. So no problem, we will give you targeted training. Yeah. So we also have the other thing is that the Bioeconomy now, Bioeconomy is as a Punjana-based training program. These are for people already employed in the organization now. And the basically one training, again, a 1 month training now, soft skills training. We also got technical training now given at no cost to them. We bear the cost basically. So the targets for this year plan to train 800 people going through this Bioeconomy training. This is not for fresh graduates. These are people already basically, this is most of COVID-19 people who are unemployed due to COVID-19, for example, or who are retrenched now. We're trying to reskill them, to get in the workforce again. So those are targets below in yellow. Next, please. And then we also have this Binax partner laboratory now. This basically, we have a whole of about 42 laboratories located throughout the country now. And very often people come to us, they want to do some testing and analysis. They do not know where to go to. So we tell no worries now. We got partner laboratories in Penang, in Johor, in Sabah, Sarawak. You can see the map over there throughout. So they work closely with us to analyze the product or to do product development together with the company. So we say, all right, you want to develop a product, a special product, I can link you up to this university, this is the expertise now, work with them, right? So we can leverage on these laboratories that we have, that we work very closely with, some of which are also accredited, with the right accreditation. Next, please. Then we also have this product development and certification program, very important. Many companies, startup companies especially now, they want to do a product development, they want product formulation, laboratory analysis, don't know where to analyze, product improvement, regulatory services, and no worries. We will fund you, say, for example, to test, analyze your product, for example, heavy metals, for microbial count, for example, and no cost to them, right? So we're hoping that once they validated their product, or they have got a certain regulatory approvals now, they be able to increase their market share, hopefully, or move up the value chain. So we help them with this, and there's funding for this as well. And this we link on with MAFI, the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, rather. They've got a program, so we work closely with them. There's funding for this. Again, the certification programs, companies want to get Halal, GLP, GMP, whatever certification, come to us. We can structure you, we can fund you for this to get some of this, not all, at least some of the certification. Yeah. And these are normally very first come. We only limited places, of course. Normally it's a first come, first serve sort of, basis, to get a placing in some of these facilitations. Next. Business advisory services now we've got different teams within the organization doing different types of services. We got funding now. This funding, again, we get third party to come and tell you all the different funds different agencies have. So we have a webinar, for example. Taraju come in there and tell them how they can leverage on regulatory, how to register a product now. NPRA comes in there. Person of NPRA gives you a structured talk now to get a product registered. Immigration services, this is for companies, many foreign companies based over here. They want to renew their passport year on, or their spouse's passport, children's passport, family passport. We can do that, no issue at all. Tax and advisory services, so how to find tax or tax issues, problems. We give them advisory services. We don't write the whole document for them, but the advisory services, what to do, how to do it, and who to contact is given. Yeah, very important. So we have officers again who communicate with the respective divisions in the different ministries. Yeah, doing this. Next. And then we also have this community engagement and market access events that we have. So the community engagement basically is the first about is basically we have pocket talks, right, every so often, telling anybody who wants to know about the biotech industry. All right, they give, and these are given by people who are doing this activity already. So entrepreneurs basically giving this talk, and no cost to the audience again, and they are very passionate in what they do. What we have done over the last 2 or 3 months now, we've done training such as product from honeybee cultivation now. So there's an expert coming in who does the cultivation honeybee, tells you what are the products you can produce now, how to cultivate honeybee, some issues, some challenges, So if you know Kalulu, right, the honey that we normally, no, this is honeybee, but Kalulu is different type of honey. We may be having a similar training for Kelulut as well, but for now, so the entrepreneurs basically for now gets an idea of how to cultivate honey using the right techniques and skill sets. And mushroom development in Malaysia was another talk on that given now by expert and followed by tips to use handphone to create advertisement content. I think it's very important, very useful for any entrepreneurs now, increase the market share now. What do you do using newer techniques and tools now? A handphone is a Facebook, Twitter, and so on, yeah. Instagram and so on being promoted and how to use this. So we have experts giving this talk at no cost. And also over the years, the last 15 years, we have hosted many programs. Look at promotion and events, right? To boost this whole area, to create awareness to communities, to public, to research institutions, and so on, right? What biotech is all about, the bio-based industry. So we've had events, although many of these events are not so active now because of COVID and also financial constraint, but we have hosted over the last 15 years, Bio Malaysia, Biotech Innovation Awards now given to university researchers who have good innovations, Bioeconomy Day, BioBonus, and so on, the list goes down. We also got Bio Career Day, right? And a sub-event that we have whereby any potential student submit their application form CV to us, and we then forward it to companies interested to hire this person. So we've had, as you can see, to develop the ecosystem, right, you need these building blocks, the awareness session, and we also have Jom Bio, another event, I think, where we every monthly as one session on television in the early days, right, we used to talk about 15 minutes what the biotech industry is all about. So I think these are very important building blocks, right, that must be in place, and we have in fact had this, but sadly, as I said, now we are financial constraint. We have not been hosting many of these events, but we also moved to different things now. Yeah, next. And we also have the other to build the ecosystem. Of course, technologies are very important. As I mentioned, we have 4 platform technologies that we have purchased over the years. 2 have been given out. These are 2 remaining platform technologies we are still actively engaged in, and these are not parked with us. We park these custodians. The first one is marker assist selection. It uses DNA markers to identify desired genes of desired traits in a breeding program and to undertake fingerprinting work, basically. So for example, now I want to get a high yielding palm oil tree. Now I go to the gene level based on what is the gene, the makeup is causing this. So you need technology. So we've purchased this technology, and some of the gene, the trait of interest are written over there. And these are done by, is a service offered to external organizations like MPOB, maybe some plantation houses, I'll not mention names here, come and use the services to see what are traits they can do internally, right? So you need to have a breeding program. These are big companies. And then we also got supercritical fluid extraction now. It's a new way to extract active ingredients from a matrix. This is carbon dioxide, and we have parked this platform technology with UPM. So the marker assist selection was parked with MADI, and supercritical is UPM, and we have over the years extracted about 20 over compounds, I think close to 30 compounds now, some of which are black oil, black seed, ginger, turmeric, and list goes on and on. Yeah, so any essential oils from seed sauce or even herbs, for example, you can extract. We have a smaller system and a bigger industrial scale system. The SFE here is a big industry scale system. There are 4 extraction vessels, each with a 50-liter capacity. Next. And then with that, as you can see, I've just told you a whole range of different ecosystem developmental activities we have done over the years, right? And now I want to go on to tell you the 3 core areas, right, that we have been stressing on to bring FDI in and DDI, are the ag biotech, healthcare bio, and bioindustrial. If you look at that, there are sub-sectors in each of the 3 divisions. For crops, for ag biotech, we have crops, natural product, aquaculture, livestock, and for healthcare, we got the other 5 sectors, the bioindustrial, the other 4 sectors over there. Within these, there are other subsectors, okay? For due to time constraint, I'll not have time to go to any of these sectors, but just to give you a big picture, right, to see that we have teams who know enough about each of these sectors. How many companies are in the crop sector? I know what they're doing, I know as well. Similarly, for example, in the bioindustrial space, companies doing biomaterials, and who are they, what they are, and what's the biotech element is all there, yeah? So you can see these are core sectors developed by Bioeconomy Corporation over the last 15 years, and we've been quite successful in bringing such investments, but it's been lukewarm over the last year or 2 because of COVID-19. Investment is somehow this trickle down. Next. And I think I have 2 more slides here, right? The biotech emerging areas. Now, when you talk about biotechnology, right? So you may have a core biotech element, that is biotechnology, but it must be supported by some infrastructure, peripheral technologies, right? If you look at this in the space of ag biotech today, drone technology is not a biotech activity, but we have to use it in agriculture now, right? So we've got drones, automation, smart sensing and monitoring, and smart analysis and planning are all peripheral support technology within the ag biotech space, which we are encouraging our farmers to use. Okay, one example is in the livestock industry. We are now trying to encourage farmers for the dairy industry at least to use smart collars now. So the smart collar, it will cost you a bit, but it'll tell you now when the cattle is eating, when it's going to get sick. Now you preempt you basically, right? So you can take remedial action right before it actually happens. So you can increase your yield, right? So in the healthcare area, we've got digital therapeutics, digital medicine, personal medicine, nanomedicine, etc. Right? These are core areas, and again, bioindustrial, circular economy, sensor, 4IR. These are niche technology where today we are promoting companies to adopt all of this. And look at the one, bioinformatics and synthetic biology. It's in between ag biotech and also healthcare biotech. There's a convergence of these two platform technologies. Bioinformatics is becoming a very important, very big field today, and that's biotech per se. So is synthetic biology, right? Then we've got 3D bioprinting, autonomous robots, and so on. And then we got a whole list, the far right in IoT, right down to augmented reality and simulation. And these cut across all the three different areas. Yeah, big data, we've got cloud computing, digitalization now. Everybody's using handphone to get whatever they want, right? You want to drive your sprinkler system, your fertigation systems now in the farms, right? It's all in the handphone now. So I think our farmers, fishermen and livestock breeders have to move in this area where agriculture biotech is concerned. Similarly, healthcare, I think it's happening in healthcare area already. Everything is digitalized now on the phone. And by industry, of course, I think they have been quite advanced in this area, especially IoT, right? They adopted a while back, but probably is the next generation IoT now that's being adopted by these companies. I think my final slide now, I have some of the challenges. Next, please. Yeah. What's the next? Where are we moving from here now? I've said, where is biotech? Next frontiers now. What we should be looking at, caring about. We look at 4 areas of bioinnovation. This is taken from McKinsey report last year. One is biomolecules using various molecular tools, gene editing tools now, such as CRISPR now, for example, now. And also, for example, Malaysia is developing a national vaccine roadmap now, right? If you look at national vaccine roadmap, it's all to using molecular tools now, how to realize a vaccine, all right? So I think this biomolecules become very important, especially in the healthcare sector, and to a lesser extent also in the agriculture sector, right? Where molecules are being engineered, okay, and using different means. And the other biosystems now, in the healthcare sector now, cellular and gene therapy products now, whereby using your own cells now, can you now stimulate them now, try to conjugate them with certain biomolecules to rejuvenate the stem cells to increase the immune system now. So that is being done by systems, engineered plants now. Psychology on a chip is a new thing now. You put a chip, everything's defined on the chip now, and you just embed it, for example. Then biomachines and interfaces, bionic organisms, using microfluidics now. That is a lot of research being done to that now, whereby you have a chip now, a chip, you've got organ growth. So you do not, for example, to administer a drug now, you don't need a physical human now. You just have a bionic organism now on a chip. It will tell you how your heart rate is going to be if you put this medicine, for example, and so on. So that is new. Organ, that's organ on a chip. Bionic organisms are basically things like implants now. You got your ear implants, your new pacemakers. They are bionic devices now. New pacemakers will tell you, it will not simply beat at a constant rate. It'll beat depending on whether you're running, jogging, walking, sleeping. You'll be able to sense, right? Those are bionic organisms. And miniature bioreactors now, something very new. We have small reactors to create the same thing that you want as opposed to bigger bioreactors. They're more efficient. And biocomputing, of course, big data now, synthetic biology, bioinformatics, again, all right, it's an area of interest moving forward. And that's why I think Malaysia should also be looking at and see how we can harness some of the opportunities in this area. And finally, what are challenges faced by this industry? There are quite a few challenges, right? Generally, is dependence on fossil fuel and fuel prices. The minute petrol prices dip, no one wants to talk about biotechnology. The money they increase, they want to talk about biotech. So that's a yo-yo game playing. We're hoping that for fossil fuel prices to stabilize, we will have a clear picture, right? It's probably depressed now. So biotech activities will, especially the biofuel space, right, also depressed. Your biomass conversion technologies now, although there are many conversion technologies out there, but to convert EFB, for example, for Malaysia's case, is not proven and tested on a large industrial scale yet. Hence why we're not building biochemicals from EFB just yet, right? Technologies are maybe not ready or not matured enough. Limited aggregated biomass feedstock in Malaysia, a problem that we have, a perennial problem, whereby we talk about lots of EIB all over the place, but to get it in one space is a bit difficult, right? High cost to develop drugs and commercial facilities. You need all the clinical trials, phase 1 to phase 4 now takes time, money, effort in, and so on. We have lack of VC funding in Malaysia compared to Singapore, our neighbors. So it's a very matured VC funding for biotech companies. Ethical issues now, with embryo now, can you tinker around embryos or not? Again, we cannot, although we know how to do it. Ethical issues comes in, and also high risk enrollment times. I think this clear-cut case biotech, there is a lot of uncertainties involved. Even tissue culture, when I put a plant on the soil, I'm not sure, depending on rain, the moisture content, things will keep changing. Yeah. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I think I come to the end of my presentation. I thank you so much for listening. I'll take it back to Noor for any question and answers.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hacharat. Yes, as you mentioned, it's time to open the floor for the Q&A session. We actually do have a couple of questions that were asked during your presentation. So if you're ready, I'll ask the first one, which is on the Biobased Accelerator program. So this person would like to know how they can apply for that and what are the criteria to be a part of BBA. Thank you.
I think it's a very apt and good question because BBA is just newly launched. To get the detailed information, you can go to our webpage, bioeconomycorporation.com.my, and then the guide you go under, there's a tab there under BBA, I think it'll tell you, okay, the application forms are all online. So all you have to do is basically clicking online. I think the 5 or 6 page application form, fill that on, everything's done online. Please don't give us any personal emails, and my team will take it from there. The important thing is what's the criteria to apply for this, right? I think one is that you have to be a paid up company. If I recall, it's about 50,000 or revenue of 80,000 a year. All right, that's one criteria. You need to have that, and also you need to basically, if you're a company, established companies with some track record, you will have your accounts, you will have your annual report. You give us your annual report, your revenue and so on, what you've generated, just for us to see. If you're making losses, that's fine. Okay, we don't want to see you just making profit and get you into this program. And also we need to get an SSM form from you, right? So the criteria is very lax and loose, really. I think the most stringent criteria many cannot meet would be the paid up of 50,000 or 80,000 for revenue generation. And the other one, perhaps you must be in the space of biobased. So for example, if you're doing something and you want to build an eco resort, nothing to biotech, maybe very loosely biobased, we'll tell you to, we'll not give you the status, right? So the details can be found on our webpage, and the criteria is very loose. But just to remind you, you'll not be entitled to any tax incentive, but we will give you, as I mentioned earlier, trainings, right, to basically make you move up the value chain at no cost to you. And also, finally, there's a fee involved. All approved companies, you have to pay only 250 ringgit, a nominal fee. And the amount of training you're going to get and what you're paying for, there's a big mismatch. But our idea is not to make money over here, for you to be serious so that you pay the 250 ringgit.
Okay, wonderful. And just to clarify, when you mentioned that all the information and all the to apply will be on the corporate webpage, that would be Bioeconomy Corporation.
Absolutely clear. That's correct.
Okay.
Bioeconomy Corporation webpage, yes.
Yes, perfect. Okay, then the second one, you've seemed to generate a lot of interest in applications. So the second one is asking about how to apply for AGVF or BCF on the funds.
Right. Okay. Again, both the AGF first, AGBF is a newly launched program. There's money there still and it's being approved. The application form again are online. You go to Bioeconomy Corporation webpage. All right, there'll be a tab there on funding. You go and click on AGBF. The application is there. I think for this, we'll have to ask you a few questions. You must be, if you're just a startup company wanting with funding, chances are high we will not entertain you. You must be an ongoing concern. You must have generated some income. You must have, of course, not been the rate in the black at least for several years for us to assess. You just apply, and then my team will get in touch with you. We got a team just overseeing AGBF, all right, and we will call you up. We'll have a one-on-one meeting to see what you're doing. So before you fill the application form, I suggest it's best you just write in to us. We can have a one-on-one meeting to understand the business activity. You must first be bio-based. all right? And secondly, we don't have any restriction or paid up and all that, but the point is that you must be an ongoing concern that's ideally generating revenue already, okay? Because we are going to invest in you and want to see you grow. So for the BCF now, BCF funding, in fact, we are trying to revamp it now. So currently, we are still working on the right mechanism. It was active till a while back. Now we stopped it. We're trying to, as I said earlier, open up to not only BioNexus companies, to non-BioNexus companies as well. And we're trying to increase now. We're pausing on 3 million to 5 million. Also, we're trying to see what's our low interest rate we can give the company. So that for the BCF is on hold for now, but we hopefully by year end, I'm hoping we will get a green light from the authorities, from MOF, that we can, in a new format, we can then again relaunch that. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. I believe that's it. We're reaching the time limit for the session. Therefore, I'll close the Q&A session. You've been very informative in your presentation, and I'm sure to reiterate again that all the information can be obtained via the Bioeconomy Corporation website. So once again, Dr. Hacharan, I'd like to extend a big thank you for your presentation of Bioeconomy Corporation and how it supports the bioeconomy ecosystem and our bio-based industry. So to all our audience, thank you very much for joining us here today. Please do visit Bioeconomy Corporation virtually here at Mihas, and to do so, register first as a treat visitor at www.mihas.com.my. With that, I wish everyone a good day ahead. Thank you and goodbye.